House commits to maintaining January to December budget cycle. House moves to amend the Universal Basic Education Act. And 2023 budget. House of Representatives set to engage ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Debates begin on the 2023 appropriation bill dubbed Budget of Fiscal Consolidation and Transition. In keeping with tradition, the National Assembly is promising to have it ready for assent by the end of the year. It's a pleasure to have you join us again on You and Your Reps. I am Victor, as welcome. The House of Representatives has expressed commitment to ensuring early passage of the budget. Deputy Speaker Ahmed Idris Wasi said it was in keeping with tradition of the Ninth House to maintain the January to December budget cycle.
Plenary featured the adoption of the resolution to investigate the processes of recruitment, promotion and staff quota as the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps. The motion raised by Awaji Nombek and one other House member is tied to allegations of non-compliance with the principles of federal character by the NSCDC.
As reported that the recruitment exercise was done without advertisement, with over 90 employment letters returned to the headquarters from Imo State, as those who were to receive their letters did not show up, and that those slots were reported to belong to River State indigents.
Committees on Interior, Federal Character and Public Service Matters have been mandated to carry out the investigation by looking into the mentioned processes in the last 10 years. The House also mandated the Committee on Finance to investigate the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission in areas relating to revenue allocation, data collection and verification, and indices used for disbursement to states. The motion moved by Representative Magbila is drawing attention to the formula used for allocation.
Concerned about allegations that certain states unduly influenced RAMFAC and the Accountant General of the Federation to their advantage in the provision and utilization of data and computation of indices and the utilization of indices for revenue disbursement, respectively. 5
bills were read the third time on powers, including the bill to establish Service Compact Management Agency, Servicom.
For the effective management, execution and enforcement of service compact with citizens, setting control, implementation and enforcement of service charter and standards, the identification and facilitation of resolution of service failures, and enhancement of citizens' service rights and responsibilities in Nigeria and for related matters.
5 bills, among them Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Amendment Bill and Defense Logistics Bill, passed first reading.
Elsewhere, the House of Representatives says amending the Universal Basic Education Act has become necessary, going by lack of accountability by some states in the implementation of the policy. Now, this came to the fore at a public hearing by the House Committee on Basic Education.
The engagement with stakeholders from various agencies saddled with the responsibility of meeting the needs of basic education in Nigeria provided a platform to speak to the issues affecting the scheme in some states of the Federation.
UBEC has built fantastic structures in some states that have been abandoned. There's one in my state, 14 buildings, rats, rain, fire. It was handed over to the state governor over 5 years ago. There's one in Kogi also. So there has to be, we have tried to amend the UBEC law now on how to take back those facilities if they are not put into use within 6 months of handover.
The bill seeking establishment of a commission for secondary education is among those that got stakeholder input at the public hearing.
Tertiary education has a parent being TET fund, but senior secondary education has always been an orphan, which is why we think that this Senior Secondary Education Commission is long overdue.
Another area of attention which the committee is working at amending is the Act on Vocational Education.
We already, realize the importance of vocational training You know, in fact, even the National Policy on Education does not make it compulsory for every child moving from primary to go to junior secondary school. No.
The lawmakers stress that there has to be a turnaround of policy direction and targets at all levels for Nigeria to achieve aspirations.
The stage is now set for standing committees of the House of Representatives to engage ministries, departments, and agencies of government on their fiscal projections for 2023, as captured in the budget estimate, which has passed second reading at the House of Representatives. Here's our National Assembly correspondent, Lami Ali, with high points of the debate on the estimates before its referral to Appropriation Committee.
One point that resonated in the course of the debate on the appropriation bill is the consistency in the last 7 years of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari in budgetary releases and implementation.
We must look at those key areas, especially in the area of consolidation of the ongoing projects. Most of these projects, Mr. Speaker, honorable members, you can agree with me, are the legacy projects of the Buhari administration. They are also legacy projects that we should all be proud of as an institution.
Part of the projects that Nigerians, our constituencies, enjoy today are those projects that are sponsored by members.
In my constituency, this government have done well in implementation of budgets. We'll be able to recover erosion sites that was killing people over the years.
Contributions also touch on the prospects and challenges of the 2023 budget vis-a-vis current realities such as crude oil theft, subsidy, revenue leakages, among others.
Our debt to GDP ratio is still within the sustainable bound.
Suddenly we are discovering that a pipeline has been existing for the harvest of petroleum products, and it is not official.
If we are to block the crude oil theft between now and December, we can make more than 4.5 trillion.
We need to leverage on the global energy crisis to maximize our gain.
Our revenue generation agencies in Nigeria are not doing enough.
The lawmakers said the budget's defense with MDAs is an opportunity to close gaps. Other features as plenary include the adoption of a motion from Hassan Fulata and 11 House members urging authorities to provide protection and relief materials in states affected by flood. The motion from Solomon Maren appealing for urgent action by governments to stop incessant killings and kidnappings around Mangu Bokos in Plateau State was adopted.
The Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Armed Forces and other security agencies, that they immediately mobilize security to the troubled areas.
House members also supported the call from Shehu Kakali requesting the return of looted artifacts in Sokoto Caliphate by colonials, and the motion from Abbas Adigun seeking the declaration of historical monuments in Oyo State as national monuments.
Those who looted our people's heritage resources, especially during the 19th century and early 20th century wars, smuggled them out of the country and contributed to the impoverishment of the state's heritage and depletion of the nation's tourism and cultural sectors.
Oyo State has none out of 65 national monuments in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the House has passed a resolution to investigate the planned sale of Polaris Bank by the CBN as raised by Henry Wauba and the alleged setting ablaze of a vessel involved in oil theft by security men at Focados as moved by Onufio Luke. Plenary has been adjourned to Tuesday, 15th November 2022.
Just like there is a majority leader in the House of Representatives, there is also a minority leader. Let's find out the role of the minority leader from Chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business.
He takes care of interests of the minority, as the name applies. He coordinates his members, ensures that the interest of the minority is protected, and he leads them in debate.
Every new day brings the 2023 election ever closer, so we continue to examine prospects of the general election, first to be conducted with the Electoral Act 2022. We engaged Chairman of the House Committee on National Planning and Economic Development, Abdul Ganiu Cook Olododo.
This is the first time in the history of Nigeria when you have, after primary of the parties, you see half month before the election, and involve a lot of resources. But the Electoral Act has already spelled out how a candidate, how much a party or a candidate can spend for an election. It's a way of helping the democracy. 2, it gives room for stability in governance. What do I mean by that? You know, before 2022 Electoral Act, amendment of the Electoral Act, you discover after primaries, some people from different parties will wait until when the candidate emerge from an election, they now go to court to start pre-election matter. Whereas this electoral gave rooms for anybody that have any issue with their party, inter-party, which is pre-election matter, to iron it out before the proper election. So you cannot bring up pre-election matter after the election. That one really help the democracy. Because if you allow whoever win an election to be focused on what is in front of him or her. Whereas before, both pre and after post-election, everybody will go to court. So now it has reduced, it is going to reduce distraction for whoever is elected. Because after the election, what we have to face is post-election, which is now between the contestant and the party involved. And if that happens, there's a time lag also for it to finish that before the inauguration of the next government, which I think is good for our democracy. The other area where it's happening is it gives room for the electorate to see the aspirant or the candidate of different parties to showcase their experience and what maybe their past experience before aspiring to be a candidate for a party or to contest for an election, and what they have for the masses. Political office should not be for making money. It's a call to service. But in Nigeria, we discover that some people don't have money, they don't have source of income. The only way they believe is go to politics and contest. And that's why you see people take all sorts of funny things to emerge. If actually you want to serve, you don't need to involve yourself in violent. You tell the electorate, this is what you have done before, this is what you are, and this is your antecedent, and this is what you still have to offer them. The other way, it's like marketing, people that is marketing a product. And I want to advise whoever that, not only even my colleagues, any politician that will really mean business and really want to help this country and our democracy, there must be a sort of commitment to your people's need. There must be a patriotism intention, or you have to be patriotic if actually you want to serve. Because if you don't want to serve, if you are not a patriotic person, you'll be there not to serve. You will be there to maybe satisfy your own personal ambition, which is not helping the democracy and even the country at large. But if you are close to your people, you'll be able to listen, see what and what they need, and where you can intervene or reduce the problem of your constituency.
And ordinary Nigerians on the streets of Abuja have their say on the 2023 budget proposal. Let's hear them.
Going through the rundown of the budget as presented by the president, it is optimistic. But most importantly, I would like the government to focus more on education, funding of education, That is where I believe should rank first before the capital projects.
We can call him Mr. President of Target. He do always present his budget at the right time, concerning the depth that is into the budget and the expectation for the crude oil and the dollar rate. It is going to face a lot of challenges.
Government should make intensive effort in the area of implementation. Otherwise, it will be a normal thing that you will hear budget presentation and then you will not see improvement in the life of citizens.
It shows how committed the president is on the issue of ASU, because he has made provision for about 470 billion. Even though it's not where we need to be, but at least we need to make a step forward.
As they promised due to the COVID-19 and the high increase in price of the commodities, they promised to increase salaries, but unfortunately they didn't consider that one in the recurrent expenditure. So I'm also disappointed with that.
I will advise the federal government the budget of 2022 should be implemented first. Not that you just pass a budget and there won't be a proper implementation.
This week on You and Your Reps, the committee segment takes a look at activities of the House Committee on Science and Technology. We spoke with Chairman of the committee, Beni, who shares her thoughts on the 2023 appropriation to the science and technology sector.
We make laws that will enhance the growth of the science and technology sector in Nigeria. We have done and played this role very, very efficiently. We've reviewed a total of about, in this assembly alone, about 15 different bills and more motions that have arisen from different agencies, amendments, and so on and so forth. Our other mandate, of course, is oversight. We have to oversight these agencies to see whether the appropriation that is appropriated to them from the National Assembly is actually expended, is actually executed, and to make sure that whatever comes as a budgetary proposal for them is in line with the mandate of the committee. The standing orders provide very clearly that there shall be a Committee on Science and Technology, which shall oversight the 17 agencies of science and technology. Now we have two committees. We have the Committee on Science Research Institutions and the Committee on Science and Technology. So we ensure that the Ministry of Science and Technology produces goods, services, applies innovation into every single thing we do in this country. And when I say that, I mean the whole of the budget will not be properly executed if there's no technological input into it. And so if you look at, let's say, works, for instance, we also look and see, okay, Ministry of Works, is local technology being used in these sectors and on our Nigerian roads? For instance, the Nigerian building and road research industry should ensure that every single road in Nigeria uses local content, and that at least a majority percentage of every single raw material that is used to develop these roads are made in Nigeria or sourced in Nigeria and locally produced. And so that is the job of this committee. A lot of improvement since I've chaired this committee has come into the science, technology, and innovation sector. Nigeria is now beginning to locally produce a lot of its goods which otherwise we were importing. For instance, I know that in breweries, the barley we use for malt is no longer imported. It's locally sourced from our agricultural products. In shoemaking, Nigerians wear lots of made in Nigeria shoes, and we have some of the best qualities of shoes that are even exported to other countries. For instance, in health technology, we even have some Nigerian homemade hospital beds, and a lot of equipment now is and can be made in Nigeria. In agriculture, we have rice mills, milling equipment, we have cassava milling equipment, tomato processing equipment. A lot of our factories and companies, they use a lot of locally made equipment for their companies, for juice factories. So Nigeria has all the capacity to do that. The issue is being able to harness it, to use it on a larger scale. And of course, being able to improve upon this technology. But Nigerians do not believe in their own. And so normally when you find that there's a made in Nigeria, Nigerians immediately want to run to buy the foreign one. How will you improve upon your own technology if you don't use it? It's from regular use of the made in Nigerian ones that you can improve upon it and then market it and become competitive with the foreign ones. The foreign ones, the users in those countries buy their own. You can see how America promoted Made in America, and you see how China promotes Made in China. So Nigerians should promote Made in Nigeria so that we can improve upon our technology and not be reliant on importation. One of the reasons why we're in a recession is because Nigerians rely too heavily on imported goods. If we produce our own goods and become self-sufficient and improve upon our own technology on our own goods, homemade goods, you'll find that in Africa we'll be the leading supplier of goods because we have all the research components that is needed. We have some of the most brilliant researchers and professors in the world. There's nothing that is done outside the shores of this country that cannot be done in this country. To appreciate and grow their own. And secondly, remuneration for the scientists must be improved. Scientists across the world are paid heavily. In Nigeria, they're paid poorly. For instance, a lot of the researchers in our agencies, they prefer to work. Once they have their PhDs and some experience, they prefer to migrate to the universities because the university salary scale has a better scale than the Ministry of Science and Technology and its agencies. So we need to improve upon the pay of our researchers so that they can be better paid and come up with more research outcomes that will give us prototypes that we can use in this country, models, and better research outcomes for our citizens. I think the sector needs more funding. I think this is a sector that has not been adequately funded by government. I think there was an improvement when this government came on board. We've seen a higher increase in the percentage of funding, but there's an international convention that says 5% minimum of the GDP of a nation should go to science and technology, and we don't have that yet. I think we have less than 1%, so we need to work harder. This is a budget of consolidation. So hopefully what we'll be doing is to educate the next government on the importance of funding the science and technology sector. Because if they want Nigeria, the inflation even to be reduced, and they want us to get out of recession, We need science and our own locally homegrown science and technology. For instance, you just talked about pencils. We do have made in Nigeria pencils now, but we should have gone beyond that. You know, we're talking about technology. We need to compete with the nations that... We need to compete with nations that make computer chips, for instance. We have minerals, we have everything. Lithium batteries can be produced in Nigeria. Everything can be produced and exported. We have all the natural resources, human, technological, everything is here. It's just for us to harness it, which the government needs to pay more attention to, so that we also do not use, we create jobs and employment opportunities for our young ones through doing by so doing.
And of course, the science of today is the technology of tomorrow, to quote Edward Taylor. And that's been you and your reps. We thank you for watching. I'm Victor, as will join us again.